go ahead and get into our agenda. We have a quorum of members between those who are here in the room and those who are online. You can see the agenda on the screen, and just sort of as a side note, as we move into voting on those minutes, for those who want to read along with the documents that we'll be referencing, you can find those on our website with solutionsfordelawareschools.com. I'm sure that can be put maybe available to folks online in some way, hopefully, as a link. And if you go to, you can scroll down and you will see, I believe, the meeting listed and materials for it there. Yeah. So we'll get started first with some reminders. Because this is a hybrid meeting, we do ask you to try to remember to announce your name before you speak, whether you're in the room or online. If you are online and you are not speaking, please try to stay muted so we don't hear background noise, and we will do a formal roll call of consortium members who are able to vote when we get to that. And we will start with, we have 3 sets of minutes on the table for approval that have been drafted. You should have received those by email if you are a consortium member. And so I would be looking for a motion. I think, we need to take them one by one, or can we do a motion to approve all minutes?
You can do a motion to approve all, but can we do the roll call first?
Oh, just to see who's here?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and do a full roll call so we know who is in attendance.
I'm going to do the roll call. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Aaron Bass.
Aaron Bass is here and walking in with Mayor John Carney.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ayana Khan.
Present.
Simone Silver. Danye Woods.
Present.
Superintendent Deirdre Joyner.
Present for just a bit, but I'm present. Thank you.
Thanks. Superintendent Darrell Green. Senator Eric Buxton. Superintendent Jeff Menzer.
Present.
Mayor Carney, will mark him present. Superintendent Joe Jones. Kendra Brown.
Present.
Superintendent Lisa Lawson.
Present.
Margie Lopez Waite.
Present.
Councilwoman Maria Cabrera. Maria Matos.
Present.
Matt Den.
Present.
Representative Nnamdi Chikwocha.
Present.
Ray Jones Avery. Ray Fitzgerald. I think we saw you. I think you're here, Ray. Stephanie Ingram.
Stephanie Ingram, present.
Thanks. Teron Williams.
Present.
Tika Hartsock. Senator Tizzy Lockman.
Present. Okay, welcome. And for those of you who didn't know, we are competing with a spelling bee enrolled in students, so that definitely puts a lot of our members in a tough spot. Apologize for that one. We would all love to be watching the kids spell. So we will try to move quickly. I think let's go back to the minutes. And so I'd just be looking for a motion for us to approve these 3 sets of minutes.
Move we approve the minutes. The 3 sets of minutes, July 29, October 28, and November 6, 2025.
Great. We have a motion from Superintendent Benzer. Do we have a second?
Second.
Awesome. We have a second from Matt Den. Haley, can you take a roll call to approve those minutes? If there is any objection.
Sure. Yes. We'll run it back to the top. Aaron Bass,
Approve.
Ayana Khan, Simone Silver, Danye Woods,
Yes.
Superintendent Deirdre Joyner, all right, I'll circle back to some of these folks that were present, but Senator Eric Buxton, Superintendent Jeff Menzer,
Yes.
Mayor John Carney,
Yes.
Kendra Brown,
Present.
That's your mouth.
I'm sorry.
Wait.
Yes.
thank you. Superintendent Lisa Lawson,
Yes.
Margie Lopez Waite, Maria Matos,
Yes.
Matt Den,
Yes.
Representative Namdi Chikwocha, sorry, did Namdi respond? Representative?
No.
Ray Jones Avery,
Yeah, yes.
Did you hear that? That was a yes, no, and Mark for
Okay.
president.
thanks.
Okay.
Sorry, it's a little bit hard for me to hear. Stephanie Ingram,
Yes.
Teron Williams,
Yes.
Senator Tizzy Lockman.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go back up to the top just because I know we had Ayana Khan was here. I'll just ask Ayana Khan again.
Approved. Sorry, I couldn't unmute before.
No problem. Sorry about that.
Representative Chukwocha was a yes too.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Margie
So
Lopez Waite was a yes as well.
great. Thank you. So that's 15 yeses, so the motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much, Haley, and everyone for that. So we have that done. We're going to move now into the next item on the agenda to talk about an update on our planning process. Again, I mentioned the materials are available on the website. I would just restate, if you'd like to access the materials that we're referencing, you would go to solutionsfordelawareschools.com and then go to the header for meeting materials, put full body meeting materials, and then you'll see everything related to that up at the top next to February 12th meeting notice. So the first things first, is the last time that we were together was our December 16th full body meeting, at which time we voted to affirm the selection of the Northern Newcastle County Consolidated School District model for development into a full proposal. And we have spent the intervening time, apart from, you know, some breaks for the holidays, really looking at our capacity and making sure that we were set up optimally to move forward and, you know, develop that plan in the efficacy that that process deserves. So we are bringing forward tonight, you know, we sent out to all members probably within the last 24 hours, I believe it was. So this is our first pass to look at this, and we are sharing this for your feedback. This is something that we want to ultimately affirm at a subsequent meeting that we expect to calendar within 2 weeks, 3 max. But I wanted to walk through this a little bit. just to give everyone looking on a sense of what we're working with and what we propose to be working with, to make sure that we do this effectively. So it's going to be just a very administrative heavy conversation and meeting. So the document that was shared, you can see it represented on the screen ahead of you. It's just a plan development structure and process, about a 5-page document, reminding folks, if you're pulling this up online, the context of this work that we are doing, and sort of reminding who is currently involved in terms of governing the consortium. So of course, Matt and I serve as co-chairs, and we have a committee organization that has already been established through discussion of the consortium over the last 18 months, the 3 primary subcommittees, and then we added the discretionary recommendations committee. We are also recommending, and you'll see in this document, the formation of an executive committee to really pull together a small, more nimble group of our consortium members to provide some strategic guidance and oversight of the work that's being done by those subcommittees. And that would, as recommended in this document, work under the oversight of Representative Chakosha to serve as its chair. This would, of course, be intended to ensure that we are, working in a coherent manner and aligning across recommendations. If you recall, the 3 primary subcommittees were each tasked with a subset of stipulations that we are assigned to fully pursue in any final proposal. Make sure that gets effectively synthesized into a unified plan. And then you'll see referenced here another new addition, consult with an advisory committee to be also established. So while the concept for the executive committee would be a subgroup of our members, and hold on a second. I would be a subgroup for members then to work in a nimble manner. We know that there are a lot of broader stakeholder groups and sectors that want to make sure to be connected. We of course have our community engagement subcommittee to do a lot of that work, but we think having representatives that work more directly with our executive committee through this advisory committee could also be very, very fruitful and also keep us from having too many members on that executive committee. Of course, because we would be approving the addition of these committees by vote, not tonight, but at a subsequent meeting, these would also be public entities. So their meetings would be fully public. They will be posted and you will have an opportunity to hear what's being discussed through their work with opportunities for public comments. So to make sure that this document itself and the formation of these entities are intended to ensure that we are delivering the full transparency that has been asked for and we have heard. And then just in terms of the staff oversight technical support, we work with University of Delaware and Delaware State University with our staff, and would of course continue to do that, but have also had a lot of conversations in December 16th about the need to have some technical capacity support for the research required to develop a full plan. So this structure and process document just speaks to that. The contracting of an independent research and consulting firm to be able to fully manage and lead the complexity of developing this proposal, and just talk a little bit of how it would help to guide the work of the subcommittee, and work hand in hand with our existing staff structure. We're also proposing that we look into utilizing some of the resources we have for redistricting to contracts with support on communications and community engagement to ensure that we're doing that fully as well. And so that I think is everything we have slides for, and everything really that's in that document. So we'll just be happy to open it up for discussion now or any feedback that folks might have. We will of course also take feedback through other means, and that includes members of the public when we get to public comment. But so this is our suggestion of how we plan to approach this. to make sure that we are doing, justice to the proposal that we have signed ourselves up to deliver. Any questions? Thank you, Mayor.
I must admit, I might have missed the explanations on what's the purpose of the change, what's ultimately the main purpose of it.
I think to make sure that we, are moving forward in, you know, with, I think, a pretty quick meetings and to have this smaller group engaging with the subject matter, you know, whether it be, you know, the expertise from within our group. But I think just making sure that we had that more nimble to make sure the other groups were, getting the support that they need.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question is because I think we need a structure that we can move faster.
Oh, that is, oh, sorry. Could you restate the question?
Yeah, the reason I asked the question is because I think we need to move expeditiously.
Yeah. Yeah, the goal is certainly not to slow things down. The goal is to make sure, that we are moving as quickly as we can and as appropriate for the scope of work that we need to accomplish. And it was proposed by some of our members and the executive committee would help to facilitate that. Yeah. President Ezra?
Two questions. One, the discretionary recommendation subcommittee, how does that function moving forward, given that it had a very discrete task about preparing something? So I'm curious, what is that going to look like?
Fair question. We'll let Matt answer it. So, do we need to get another mic?
Yeah.
All right, we'll pass it.
I'm gonna take my chances with one where someone hasn't already permanently represented that they're ill.
Fair enough.
The discretionary recommendations committee work, I think it's done.
Yeah.
We made our recommendations and they've been passed along. Yeah.
I mean, we could sunset it. We haven't done that formally. Are you recommending between the two of you that we?
Someone who's probably going to be on multiple ones of these. I'm just curious, like, what's the load going to be across all of these?
I mean,
Quite frankly, I also question the people who are on these subcommittees moving forward. Are they going to be the same exact people, or are you going to reconstitute those? Because some of those people were not necessarily decision makers in deep in the know. We try to cast across all districts to get representation. And if we're going to be we're looking at this more deeply at a higher level. I'm not sure that the folks who are on those committees, from at least my perspective from Colonial, might not be things beyond there, depending on what's going on. I don't know, just throwing it out.
I'm going to speak first to the discretionary recommendations. I think the way we indicated it would be structured would be that we would ask for certain data to be submitted to fiscal impact. And so that's what will happen. So there isn't a need for discretionary to continue. So we can add that in, that we will sunset that committee. I think that would be accurate if there's no objection to that. Then when it comes to membership, I think that we do find ourselves at kind of a pivot point where we've been working for a very, very long time to get to this juncture of setting ourselves up to begin working really hard on delivering the plan. And I agree with you, there might be some changes that would be appropriate to have. So that's a conversation that we can have as co-chairs with each. I know we gave each LEA leader an opportunity to, you know, volunteer some members of your team. And so you might want to consider that. They might be begging you for to be reassigned. So that's definitely a conversation we can take member by member. So if anyone's looking for an off-ramp, how much you've been assigned to this consortium by role, which is a lot of you, you know, let us know if you have to reconsider. Any other thoughts on that? Any concerns or recommendations related to the structure represented in the document? So I think our intention would be that when we come back here in a couple of weeks, we would vote to affirm a fine version of this document. I don't know that we will be naming names at that time, but you know, possibility. And we'll hopefully have more that we can tell on the independent research and consulting firm front. Matt, do you want to? No, we're going to do that. But that's one of the things, as I mentioned, you know, working through just examining our capacity and looking to add to it. We have process that we have to follow. So there's not a lot that we can talk about specifically when it comes to that, but my hope is that that will change within the next 2 weeks. Any other questions? Anyone online? I want to make sure we're not leaving folks off if they are online and have a question or concern. Okay. All right. Well, you can feel free if something pops into your mind. Obviously, we'll look for any inputs that folks might have during public comment, and we'll be touching base with all consortium members to follow up to make sure that we're not missing any important feedback to incorporate in the affirmed version of these committees. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it to you. I'll let you lead us through the Joint Finance Committee and budget update. If you don't mind.
So this is, this should be pretty quick. This first slide, which you all got in your packet and that is up on the screen, is really just designed to give everyone a snapshot of where we are today in terms of programs that involve Redding recommended funds. And the main takeaway is that in prior years, a pretty substantial amount of money had rolled over from one fiscal year into the next, and that was largely because the full day preschool program that we had recommended funding for going back several years had taken a couple of years to get started. So that money had rolled over and had allowed us to use rollover money to subsidize the additional operating fund money that was appropriated by the General Assembly. So as you can see from that current available balance, that what it says? The glasses. The last column. Yeah. As you can see from that column, most of those funds over the course of years have been spent. So the only two categories where there are substantial balances that will roll over into this year, assuming that the General Assembly approves them rolling over, is in the data dashboard category and in the category for the consortium's paying for technical assistance, basically, with the development of its plan. So the amount of rollover funds that we will have has decreased year over year, and that's where we are today. And again, when I say a snapshot, we're not at the end of the fiscal year yet. So those numbers may change slightly between now and June 30th in terms of the current balance available. The next document that you had in your packet that had been sent out is really just sort of a preview of some of the questions that because of the fact that there's less money rolling over, some of the questions that we will need to discuss when we approve a recommended budget to send to the Joint Finance Committee and the Controller's Office. Just as a reminder, when the General Assembly in the budget epilogue, which we expect will be the same this year as it's been in past years, the General Assembly appropriates money that we can then make recommendations as to how it's spent, but our recommendations have to be approved by the Controller, the Office of Management and Budget, and the co-chairs of the Joint Finance Committee before the money can actually be spent. So we have three separate sign-offs that we have to get. We have generally tried to make our recommendations before the budget actually gets passed, so that there's as little delay as possible once the budget is passed in getting our recommendations approved. So I think we're going to try to do that again this year as well. So there are a couple of budget questions that we will want to talk about, and then one sort of more programmatic type question that we'll want to talk about. The two major budget questions, and I think they were laid out in the materials that went out, are A, do we want to continue holding funds in the data dashboard account? And as you all know, that is an account that was set up, I think, starting with year one of when we made recommendations, and there have been delays that we've discussed here at the consortium in terms of spending that money and getting the data dashboard up and running. So, one conversation will be, do we want to continue holding that money in that account or use it for recommend using it for other purposes. The second smaller question is, because we have been using some one-time money to subsidize the scholarships, which I think just about everyone agrees have been a very popular and very successful program. We will not have those one-time funds likely available to keep subsidizing that. So do we want to move some small, relatively small amount of money from the outside school time program line to the scholarship line so that we can keep funding that? I recommend continuing to fund that at the level that it's been funded in the past. And our funding for that has increased over time because it's been popular and there's been a lot of demand for it from the teachers and other professionals at the schools. So those are the two budget questions that we will want to talk about. The main programmatic conversation that we will want to have is with respect to the outside school time programs. If you'll remember, those had been 3-year grants. And we're now in the 3rd year of those grants. So those grants are running out this year. And we have the opportunity to recommend basically a different design for the program. The way that it was recommended originally was from a committee of this consortium, and it was recommended as a combination outside school time grant and student health center grant, and recommended an amount about $1.9 million a year. The discretionary recommendations committee actually spent a fair amount of time talking about this issue when it was discussing outside school time programs, because that's one of the things that we were talking about, including as, what would eventually be part of our final redistricting recommendation. And what the discretionary recommendations committee recommended was that going forward in terms of what we would eventually include as part of a proposed plan would be a much more streamlined and narrow type of outside school time program that would not involve student health centers, that would be strictly limited to before school, after school, and summer programming. And that would also have a very specific academic focus involving a full-time certified teacher who would be at the head of the program, and and some type of validated curriculum. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of national research on what generates improvements in student academic outcomes from outside school time programs and what does not. And we thought that doing this would adhere closer to what has shown academic results, and also would be less expensive per school, and would allow us to have to recommend that more schools have the program, as opposed to $1.9 million per year for what we had over the last 3 years. The more narrow programs, the estimates that we got back from the controller's office were $600,000 to $700,000 a year per school. So it's a much less expensive program that would allow us to operate in more schools for the same amount of money. So all of that was targeted at our final redistricting plan, which obviously is down the road. But we will want to talk about whether we would want to get a head start on that. And with respect to outside school time programs that we might fund before there's a final plan recommended, whether we might want to move more towards that in order to be consistent with what we might be recommending in the end. I hope that all makes sense. That's all just sort of a preview of a discussion that we will want to have. That we could start having tonight, but that we will want to have before we actually vote on making recommendations for the budget.
Yeah, one of the reasons it was on our mind to present to you at this time too is because we are going to be presenting to the Joint Finance Committee next Wednesday. So they will to join us or just tune in. No, at 10.
10:30.
Oh, the secretary is here. The secretary one at 10:30. At 10:30 a.m. So that of course is in Dover at Legislative Hall, that is available virtually through the legislative website. But so in preparation for that conversation, we thought it would be good to have floated the fiscal year 27 spending plan in front of you all for your feedback, so we can effectively communicate that to the members of the Joint Finance Committee. And we've also been, working on our reporting for them. They've requested that in addition to that annual reporting that we do for Joint Finance, that we start doing sort of quarterly reports related to outcomes of these programs that we're investing in. So, we've been working through that this last month, and so I wanted to make sure those consultants were in that conversation. And speaking of members of the Joint Finance Committee, Senator Buckland is present, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Sorry, I was late. Tried to kill two birds with one stone. It didn't work.
We all do that. So any questions, Mayor?
Microphones.
I guess you're going to permanently mute.
Are you sick?
No, it's me.
Just two thoughts. One is if we don't have any data with respect to the success or not of some of these programs, then I wouldn't extend them. Number one, and number two, my concern is that my focus is on the redistricting thing, right? And we need to get that done. And if by saying we're going to add on all these programs that we think you ought to do as you do the redistricting, it gets more expensive and less likely for the resources to be there, and that's a bad thing in my opinion.
And the JFC report is on our website.
Oh, thank you for that, Kelly. So for anyone who's interested in seeing what is within that joint finance report that I mentioned, that is also available on our website. Is that which tab? Will help people navigate. So it's not only the most navigation friendly.
The full body meeting material.
The full body meeting materials. Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I say?
Yes, Senator Buckland, please. We'll get your microphone to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm not gonna come with specifics, but as a JFC member, it's probably one of the ones that inquired that, okay, I love what I see on paper, but what I really need to see is what are the outcomes? What are we looking to get? And not just in this space, but in all spaces in government. So it's not targeting you, but then maybe it is because it's a big number in the budget. And was it always expected to be baked in? And how does it relate to this new funding model that we're trying to come up with related to the state? And how does it relate to maybe how we're coming up with, spending on early, learning for our pre-K students? So that's kind of what I'm looking for from it. Maybe not today, but that's what I would like to know better. JFC, and then moving forward, where do you see yourself when all the things get settled? And how does it relate to the budget and money?
Yeah, I think I have a lot, I guess I'll speak for myself to borrow your phrase, but that I think we're very aware, or I hope that all members of the consortium are aware that we are one of several very significant efforts related to education policy right now. And I certainly do intend for us to ensure alignment with other major initiatives. So we are working and communicating around that and with that goal in mind. And I found the request helpful. I think the request that came from the Joint Finance Committee chairs and what the OMB and the Controller General had some metrics sort of implied, which is helpful for us to know what metrics would be meaningful to Joint Finance. They weren't necessarily the ones that we were already targeting. So I think that's positive. More questions, some of the things that were highlighted. So specifically, it's not that we need to take a vote on this tonight. I think we're just trying to get a sense of the field in the room, particularly around the idea that we might shift any funds, for example, out of the racial equity data dashboard. Whispering overnight. But so I know that Ray Jones Avery has been particularly involved in the pitch and the development of that. So you could speak better than anybody else at the table, I think, to maybe what has been an obstacle to it moving forward and maybe where it stands now.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. So Superintendent Menzer, we were co-chairs for the racial equity dashboard, spent probably close to 18 months meeting every week around design and how to populate. So the delay was related to the transfer of the shifting of the data, the student data system statewide from eSchool Plus to Infinity Campus. So that is the very clear pause that was put on it. Is it still relevant? It's even more relevant. every meeting we went to for community engagement in preparation for redistricts, planning, people need to see data. The public needs to see data in an understandable way, that they don't have to look at raw data tapes. There's a lot of shifts and a lot of changes in terms of student demographics, particularly in the English language learner community. And so while we understand that we're in a different phase, we are both advocating that there still be resources to complete this public equity dashboard.
If you recall, we did present the beta version of the dashboard at a meeting over at the Bell State Building, and the attention that it got and the energy that it generated around it, we had the model, and then we used old data to kind of show what it would look like and what it could tell. So we do believe that it's the underpinning of all the conversation, so I don't know how you can throw it away or toss it off to the side. I think it was the infinite campus conversion during those conversations. We kept hearing that it has the ability to do exactly what we're doing in the dashboard. It could be there. But depending on what version of Infinite Campus you purchase is depending on what you get in order to come forward in public face. And we weren't privy to any of those conversations. They kind of got sprung on us during the process. So I think it's relevant. It should stay. I don't know what it looks like because I really haven't. It's been radio silence for a while.
But the good news is that Christy with DOE contacted us this week. They're now ready to move forward, and so we'll have more information for you next month.
Okay, but there's no longer radio silence about it. So
As of like 5:30 yesterday. there's no longer radio silence.
GFC report, they mentioned what the department's next steps are.
Okay.
This is the first I've heard that there's been radio silence from the agency for work, so I apologize if
No,
you weren't getting on the phone.
Well, we knew it was because Infinite Campus, it was like a breath of like, we need to hold this. We know you're there, but it's just taken halfway through phase one all the way to now to probably kind of get back on the radar. People get their feet on it. The only thing, I do have one other unrelated question. So is that it for the data dashboard?
She said that unless anyone else has
Is that it for the
any more
data dashboard?
commentary or questions related to the equity dashboard.
I did want to just make sure, understand what's on paper here, that the OST stuff for the high school and the middle school, that 640 that was there from FY25 carryover, according to this, that's not going to, there's nothing coming forward in that body of work. So, so I just want to make sure that they're finishing up their work this year with this graduating class. I just think we would be mindful to make sure our current provider of that service is aware that those 4 individuals who are working for us now, they're not in the budget for next year. So we just have to keep that in mind as we move forward. That's all I would caution.
I think, if I recall correctly, looking to that, we dipped into what the funds that we had set aside. But was the redistricting? So we moved into that space, but we did identify funds that were one-time carryover.
Yeah, I do. I know, but
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're sensitive to that conversation as we move forward. And again, that was because there was money on the table that wasn't getting used in other spaces. So they fully are aware of that.
Yeah.
But I just think it's something we want to keep in mind.
I mean, and I think, again, speaking for myself, I think we're open to a conversation about that. I personally feel that's one of the areas where we have some really good outcomes to talk about.
And that's what I was going to add to, because Kelly and them have reached out about the data from that group to present to JFC.
Infinite Campus.
Infinite Campus, all the work it went into prior to the data dashboard conversation to geotag students, to identify them, to put them in cohorts so we could work across districts, pull the data. As soon as VOTAC and went to phase 1 of the Infinite Campus, all their data was inaccessible to the database. And Kelly and I spent a long time trying to figure out how to bridge the gap that didn't work. And then when we all went to Infinite Campus, there's the geo tracking and the ability to tag these students like we had them in e-school. It was lost. We've not been able to do the data reporting that we did the first 2 years, where you got all of it printed out. You saw the GPA increases, the letter, the A, D, F was the grade, the attendance. We have not been able to pull any of that because of the system, because of the conversion. So the data that I would normally bring and say, hey, you guys are looking, we don't have it in that way, but we will have some anecdotal and some data from the communities and schools, graduation coaches who are still working with the youngsters and the students towards graduation. I know I didn't get to attend the meeting, I think it was last week or the week before last, where CIS called together all the districts, all the leaders, all the coaches, say, okay, here's the group. What do we got going on? And I think, Lisa, you were in that meeting. So it's still going on and happening. I just don't know if we're gonna have the data that you would look for last time.
Okay.
And the other option that we have is, the current line that we have for outside school time programs, that number was set based on an assumption about 3 programs, $1.9 million per program. If we decide that we, as the discretionary recommendations committee thought we should, that we move to a model that is less expensive for school, we could continue to do outside school time programs and on the boost program.
I'm a firm believer, the proof's gonna be in the pudding. They're coming up on graduation.
Yeah.
But don't drop them from the conversation.
But there are additional cohort.
Yeah, there could, no, this is it.
This is it.
26 is graduating. Those are the
Okay.
ones 4 years ago. We said
Okay.
this group was gonna get them across the finish line.
Okay,
And if it were to restart, it would go back to,
gotcha.
that we ideally have to go back to the 8th grade and bring them forward, because that was the conversation we ran into like midway through the project. So I would just say, while it doesn't have anything in it, I would like to leave it as a concept and an idea if the funding line can be open and utilized. But then likewise, let's see what they get across. I'm a firm believer. Senator Buxton said it, like, what's the outcome? Well, let's see in June, what was the outcome of that effort? And did we get students across the finish line like we thought we were going to 4 years ago? But to just reduce them because we're gonna move the money somewhere else has a little bit different feel to it than waiting to see what they do.
So there's some nuance to that. Right now I have a footnote
Yeah.
noting that the one-time funds for whole school professional development and middle school, high school, outside school-time programming are sort of zeroed out, but there's nuance of potential continuation for that. Whereas whole school professional development had a small remaining balance of carryover funds that can be just assumed would be absorbed into the scholarship line with permission of those, the co-chairs, overseeing the implementation of that program, right?
I would just like to underscore that, supports for 8th graders is, in preparation for high school and high school success. We do know that that is an area of great need. And we do know that the planning, and the implementation, for a unified district is not tomorrow. And so I just would like to, advocate, to continue to support, that tried and tested program.
Right, and we have under our belt a few things that I think will impact what we recommend be codified hand in hand with a full plan for student successful. And that definitely is one of the ones on our list of successful programs. Do you have an additional comment, Ben? Okay, that's helpful, I think for us. Again, we're not trying to lock anybody into any decisions, but just get a sense of where, folks' heads are at with, this as we move forward. And, we are in the governor's recommended budget, maintained essentially at the same because of differential maybe 40,000, if I looked at it. We lost $40,000 in the governor's recommended budget, but I think we'll be okay. There was a note in there about some of the overall funding being held for the district specifically. So we'll be talking about that as well. If anyone's interested in seeing what our section of the governor's recommended budget looks like, I did not bring any printouts, but I'm happy to share that with you in other forms. Yeah.
Just to be clear, there was no cut to the Redding Consortium.
There was no cut, so it's okay.
And
So
you
it's
guys are
42.
welcome.
I was like, where's the four?
I think it's.
It's just because
Yeah.
you just round
It's all right.
down. Great, thank you. All right, we have this $40,000. Thank you, Dan. Great. Okay, so if there are no further questions about, Joint Finance Committee reporting, and that update on the budget, anyone online, I would make sure we're not leaving out any members online. Good. All right. Then we are ready to move into public comment. I don't know if we have any sign-ups yet, but I will just yield it to you, Kelly, to finish that.
There were no sign-ups.
Oh, no sign-ups?
Anybody want?
Okay. Impromptu public comment?
Let's
Thank you.
take it over. And if you want to come up to.
We'll need to get a different microphone for the.
Right here.
Good evening, everyone. Introduce myself, this is Pamela Foster, subcommittee member as well as Fremont Children in Brandywine School District. So I just want to get level set. I know you've been away for a while. And so as we're going through the minutes, the updates, the changes and what have you, I just have a question relative to how we are moving forward in 2026. So is the interim, the Redding Consortium interim, I think, came out about 2025, made some decisions relative to what we need to do, which I believe ties to this finance budget for full year 2026, correct?
Yeah, no objection to answer the question. I know I'm sure you've got public comment, but well, it's really our fiscal year starts in July 1. That particular date referenced in this report has to do with the addendum that we passed that created a new subsidy.
Okay, so question is, this full year 2026, I understand fiscal and approval or whatever, is the interim, the Redding Consortium interim has nothing to do with the decision or recommendation that was made end of year 25 around a new district, correct?
No, you mean has it impacted our budget?
No. Is it in the budget, the redistricting, or is this all the interim?
Yeah, this is just the planning work.
I'm trying to get there relative because we talked about.
Sorry, Matt,
Because we talked about plan development structure and process, building on the interim framework. So is this budget interim framework?
So this budget, this goes back several years, when the Redding Consortium was only a year or two old and we were still a long way away from coming up with a plan. What we decided was that there were kids moving through the system while we were talking about a plan, and we asked the General Assembly to fund some programs for these kids while we were discussing what ultimately we would want to recommend. So this $10 million was originally appropriated 4 or 5 years ago and has been reappropriated every year. And it's funded all these interim programs like outside school time, pre-K, scholarships for teachers in Wilmington schools. So this is just, it's once again been recommended in the governor's budget to fund it for 10 million for the next fiscal year. Some portion of it we are using to pay for the technical assistance for planning for the redistricting plan, but the bulk of it is continuation of programs that were started several years ago that are targeted at helping kids that are in the system right now while we're coming up with this plan that we're going to recommend.
Okay, so the budget is commingled with interim and redistricting, is what I just heard you say.
Right, it covers, I would say it covers the administrative overhead of your district and planning work.
Okay, so there's the interim that's going to run parallel with the redistricting work. And that's why some of the money's in for the redistricting in this budget for full fiscal year 26.
The funds that we still have are intended, and kind of the exact language that is used in the budget offices is that it's support for redistricting planning. So appropriations, is that there's more language, I think, in our interim plan of how that would be, but basically, to Matt's point, technical support, the vendors that we use for technical support, it can be marketing materials, things like that. So that's stuff that you will see reflected in the budget, and nothing to do with transition costs and implementation costs. So that's
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand. So the interim work and the cost for the interim is going to run parallel with when you start doing the district work. And so is that going to be what the role that Lonnie's going to take? Is that going to be all in districting? Committee work?
Yeah, I would say this is all within a planning phase until such time as the state board and the General Assembly approve something that we send to them. And that would be, I'm assuming that you mean when it turns into like implementation work happening. Everything that's happening now is all planning, develop a proposal for approval, and at that point, yes, it can turn into, you know, something else that would.
So it is gonna run parallel to a certain, to a period of time that you go forward with redistricting and your court request, including budget for redistricting.
Well, when you say parallel, can you say a little bit?
So
more?
they're gonna go like this. So you're gonna keep the interim works going. and you're gonna
Oh, like,
start
you mean all the
doing
work
district- Yeah,
that's happening in the schools?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, all right. And so then, I guess the other question is just kind of understanding on paper, the organizational structure, like who's at the top? And who's leading what particular sub-team? You mentioned NAMI, but there's a lot of other ones on here as well. And is that in play, meaning you haven't identified a leader for staff oversights and technical support? You don't have to answer now.
Okay.
My question is,
We don't have all the people in place.
okay, and so that'd be great, if we can see an organizational structure.
An organizational chart?
Yeah, and where you got blanks, right, and you, to be determined, right, so if you got this box here called staff oversights and technical support, you haven't identified anyone, but you got the box, you got a TV, so you're gonna determine who's gonna lead that part of the organization. That's all.
Yeah.
I feel like I had a lot.
Yeah, I was good. No, that was actually helpful. So I'm sure if you were thinking it, others are thinking it. So I appreciate you and thank you everyone for letting us make that public comment, a little Q&A. I will say, as a footnote, staff oversight and technical support right now is our IPA, and we are double checking the language that that's what it said, and Delaware State University staff. So there are people in place for that specific area, but I get you. It sounds like we need more charts, make people clear, for people as it comes together.
Including more definitive roles and responsibilities in the.
Yeah. Coming soon. Would anyone else like to comment or question? Let's open it up now. Sorry, Nat. Anybody online? All right, we'll give it a second, see if anyone raises their hand. And then we will, start to move close, but, you know, it's February, everyone. We are pleased to offer some clarity around what the process looks like moving forward. We will not go so long before our next meeting. As I said, I think our expectation is this will be calendared in the next 2 to 3 weeks to follow up with, some additionally more developed information. And do our very best. I don't think anything should be a surprise as we move through this process. We will, make sure things are noticed and start moving, we hope, a lot more vigorously very soon. Any closing comments for anyone? We need a motion to meeting is adjourned. We are adjourned. Thank you.